Marco Rubio makes it official. He's running for president. We'll look at the race as it gets more crowded.
And what does Hillary Clinton mean for women in politics in 2016? The special politics edition of District Wire News starts right now.
Good evening, I'm Jordan Sharp.
And I'm Amber Liu.
The 2016 presidential election is less than 20 months away, and potential candidates are jumping in the race. Our political reporter Jonathan Hunter talked to some potential voters to get their thoughts on the upcoming election.
Florida Senator Marco Rubio is now the latest candidate to enter in the 2016 presidential race. He told donors this morning that the race should be about the future and not the present. His announcement comes a day after Hillary Clinton officially announced in a YouTube video that she is running for president in 2016.
Their way back from tough economic times, but the deck is still stacked in favor of those at the top. Everyday Americans need a champion, and I want to be that champion.
Prior to their announcements, two other candidates announced their bids for president, including Kentucky Senator Rand Paul.
A message that is loud and clear and does not mince words. We've come to take our country back.
And Republican Texas Senator Ted Cruz.
And that is why today I am announcing that I'm running for President of the United States.
Polls shows that there is a lot of competition for the Republican nomination, while Clinton is the presumed frontrunner for the Democratic Party. Ryan Schutte, a freelance journalist, says women are a huge factor in this upcoming election.
If Hillary Clinton or any other woman candidate locks up the nomination or runs for it, regardless, I think that's where you're going to see a lot of focus, because that's the woman's vote.
While Clinton was Secretary of State, she used her personal emails while conducting business. Many Republican candidates are trying to convince voters that Clinton is not reliable. American University junior Eric Higas is a Republican and says that the Clinton email scandal is concern for him as a voter.
She had personal emails right next to her work emails, which it's just a very, very bad blurring of official duties versus personal and other types of duties she had outside of the State Department.
More presidential candidates are expected to announce their bids soon. For District Wire News, I'm Jonathan Hunter.
Marco Rubio's announcement today makes the total count of presidential candidates at least 4. Here to give us some insight into this campaign is Ron Elving, senior Washington editor at NPR. Ron, thanks a lot for joining us today. We'll get to Rubio here in a minute. We'll start with Hillary Clinton, though. Just officially announced her candidacy this week and via YouTube video. No real Democratic challenger in sight, though, with her, however. So do you think that announcing this early and via this medium is going to help or hinder her in the future?
I think it helps her in the sense that it is a discouragement to any other Democrats who might still be thinking about getting in. They will see just how dominant she is as a personality, as a campaign presence at this stage of the game. It's also a way of engaging with the other team, the opposition, the Republicans. As you said already, there are already a number of Republicans who are running. They're running full time. They're taking shots at her. Some of them are actually putting on attack ads. Now we're 18 months away from the election. They're putting on attack ads against the presumed Democratic candidate, Hillary Clinton. So she wants to fire back. She wants to get into the game.
So you wrote this morning for NPR's It's All Politics blog that, quote, Hillary has neither primary rivals with whom to spar nor teammates with whom to battle the opposition party. With 18 months to run before Election Day, she is alone, not only in her own lane, but on her own track. So assuming she gets the nomination from the Democratic Party, do you feel like the lack of a primary fight may hurt her, or do you think that's going to actually help her?
Generally speaking, candidates have benefited from having a preliminary round of competition before they get into the general election. And that means vanquishing a few other rivals in the primaries, even if they're fairly weak rivals. Even incumbent presidents who usually don't have any kind of a challenge in the primaries have in some cases benefited from having somebody they can dispatch and look much more popular than. And as the other candidates, that is the Republican candidates, have an opportunity to beat each other, they're going to rise and fall as a result of that, and Hillary is probably going to remain in some sense or another in a steady state. So it would probably be a benefit to her if a couple of other people got in the race, just not anybody that would be a serious challenge.
So you mentioned, the GOP has already started their Stop Hillary campaign. Let's take a look at a video they posted just a few days ago.
Please join me in welcoming Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Hillary Clinton has
some explaining to do.
Used her personal email account to conduct official business.
Wanted to reset relations with Russia.
Not really working out well.
Potentially catastrophic move for Hillary Clinton.
Taking millions of dollars from foreign governments.
Landing under sniper fire. It was a total crock. It was a lie.
What difference at this point does it make?
This is just par for the course for the Clintons. It's a little bit secretive.
So Ron, seeing this video, is this kind of a sign from Republicans that they know that winning a fair fight against Hillary is going to be a pretty tough proposition, and that, you know, possibly focusing on the negative is where they're going to win this election?
That's usually where campaigns go. The campaigns like to talk about their own ideas. They like to present a positive vision for the country, as they should. At the same time, they know that what moves the numbers in the polls, what moves the numbers in terms of votes, is largely negative information about the opponent. So they're getting started early. They would like to define her as early as possible. And the Clinton record, both Hillary's and Bill, her husband's record, is a target-rich environment. And the Republicans have been going after them for a number of years. These are well-worn attack grooves, and we're going to hear a great deal more about them in the months ahead.
So obviously, you mentioned, Clinton has a target on her back from the GOP. That whole family has for many, many years. But do you think it's smart by the GOP now, sending these attack ads now without a candidate of their own, that the Democrats can turn around and attack right back?
It's probably smart from the standpoint of keeping their own constituencies ginned up and ready to do battle. They are not reaching out at this juncture so much for undecided voters. It's more about keeping the troops motivated and keeping the troops giving money and giving the troops giving their time to work for various candidates and keep the energy that the Republicans carried out of the 2014 midterm elections going. That was great momentum. They did fabulously well in 2014, federal races, state races, and they want to keep the team together and keep that energy alive.
Let's take a look at a GOP poll right now that was just released by Monmouth University just a few days ago. We've already had some Republicans already announced. Ted Cruz has announced he's running for president. Rand Paul. We had Marco Rubio announced today. So handicap this field for us just a little bit here. What do you think in the end game here is going to be where the Republicans nominee here for president?
Even though at this point Jeb Bush has a very modest lead over the rest of the field, if you look at the other candidates and you consider their resources, Ted Cruz has already reportedly raised $30-some million in the first few weeks as a candidate. We'll see where that goes from there. Some of his other assets perhaps are a little more questionable, whether or not he fits the rest of the party. Rand Paul, again, very enthusiastic base. He'll have some degree of money, but when you get right down to it, a very large part of the Republican base does not consider him acceptable. They see him as more or less like his father, Ron Paul. When it comes to foreign policy, he's not aggressive enough for the Republican Party in terms of national defense and security. And then when you get to somebody like Marco Rubio, I would say right now he is the guy to bet on if you're making a bet on who's going to be the vice presidential half of this national ticket, if it's not Jeb Bush at the top of the ticket. Now, right now, you'd still have to say the Bush family has an extraordinary track record. The last time the Republican Party won a national election without somebody named Bush on the ticket was in 1972, a very long time ago. So the Bush family has been a successful political commodity on national tickets, and that's a huge advantage for him. Plus, he has a lot of advantages, a lot of assets as an individual politician and policymaker, successful governor, pretty conservative, probably conservative enough. In the end, if I had to bet, I would say another Bush at the top of the ticket.
So in 2008, Democrats were very successful at kind of pairing John McCain with George W. Bush. And it was arguably one of the main reasons why they were so successful in I think, in gaining that 2008 win. Do you think the Republicans are going to try to do something similar, pairing Hillary Clinton with Barack Obama and using that narrative to try to gain the White House?
Absolutely. It is standard operating procedure for the party in power to try to extend whatever is popular about a sitting president, an incumbent president. And that usually works after 4 years. But after 8 years, it's like the mojo reverses. It goes the other way. And the out party essentially confronts a country that is ready for a change and says, we're the change. We're going to give it to you. Barack Obama did that in 2008. George W. Bush did it in 2000. Bill Clinton did it in his own way in 1992 and cut off George W. Bush after 4 years because that was really 12 years of Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush, the first President Bush, and 12 years is a very long time in our history for one party to hold the White House.
So real quickly, let's just assume that we have a Bush-Clinton election here come a year from now.
Game of Thrones.
Do you think that we could see something where voters could potentially be turned off by that, knowing that we have a sort of situation where we see the same kind of candidates running over and over again? And do you think that potentially we could see a third-party candidate emerge and have sort of a Ralph Nader effect and really hinder one of these two candidates?
All those things are possible. It's almost certain that voters will be turned off by the idea of these two dynasties, if you will, squaring off against each other, the Bushes and the Clintons. That is, I think, a clear turnoff for most American voters. Nonetheless, if the assets of those candidates are, as they appear to be now, stronger than those of any of their other candidates, they're going to wind up being the nominees, and the country is going to be confronted with that choice. Third-party candidacies are extremely difficult to mount. They're going to be overwhelmed in terms of money. It's highly unlikely that anyone could make a serious run, say like Ross Perot in 1992 and 96, and therefore it would purely be a spoiler, more along the lines, as you said, of Ralph Nader. I do not anticipate seeing that this time around, partly because there isn't a personality, and partly because the parties have gotten much more effective at suppressing that kind of third-rail candidate.
Ron Elving, Senior Washington Editor at NPR, thanks so much for joining us. Coming up, could Hillary Clinton be the first female president? And how many women actually make up members of Congress? And later, how will the youth vote affect the 2016 presidential race? That's all coming up on District Wire News.